victims because they don't have discernment. One of the things the devil is fighting is our discernment.
So when you had to get married, what are the things that you looked out for?
Yes, so it's a confession time.
It's a confession. I'm good. I have another one after this one. I have another question after this one.
I noticed that while growing up, maybe that is still part of these things. Maybe from the movies we opened to watching as children.
Yeah.
I discovered that I built an image in my heart.
Okay.
What people would call spec.
Yeah.
Probably because when we were growing up, movies we were watching, all the stars would be tall, and fair, elegant.
True. Yeah.
So I had this imagery in my heart. My wife would be tall, fair.
In fact, I wanted to marry a Brazilian lady.
You see that.
Yeah.
In fact, at a point, I was attracted to Indians.
Okay. Oh yeah. I mean,
tall,
that generation.
fair.
So you're about. Let me guess. You should be in 40s now.
I was born in the 80s.
In the 80s. So you were listening to all those songs.
Started loving this thing. So when I wanted to get married, that was an idol in my heart.
Hey.
So it took God time to break it. I have to marry His choice. I have to marry His will. But I couldn't. I struggled for a long time. So eventually, I knew that as touching marriage, first of all, my emotion has to be reconstructed.
Okay.
Because I wanted to marry what I liked, not what God would want from me. And up until a year or two to the time of marriage, I still held into this thing. I had that in my mind. And when you are a bit mentally inclined, you have a strong mind, it becomes difficult for these things to happen. Until God helped me, I started listening to messages. And these apostolic messages on the will of God, the will of God, the will of God. It was after a while that stronghold began to break. And I remember telling God, okay, whatever or whoever you lead me to, whatever the person looks like, if it's your choice, I know you know what's
Holy
good for me.
Holy Spirit played with me on that.
Right, but eventually when you speak to God like that, God will always make something beautiful out of it.
Yes, sir.
And God led me to, I discovered that my desires began to change.
Okay.
Because I began to understand a few things more. That's when God taught me that the principle of relationship is a journey from love or emotions, attractions, to understanding and then to trust.
Run down again so that
From
they will hear it.
Love to understanding and then to trust.
Okay.
He said you will be attracted to someone, but after a while you get to discover that what will matter to you more is the degree to which the person understands and connects to you.
Yes, sir.
And if you get married to someone and that understanding is not there, even if that person looks like a goddess, you will discover that a point will come you might even hate the person.
Exactly. It's
you
not by
no longer
beauty.
be conscious of the looks. So understanding weighs more on the scales than looks that triggers affection. And then he said the point would even come eventually that you have to become someone with the person that you trust the person's motives. You trust that the person can cover, can stand and support your ordination. The moment that understanding came to me, the strongholds began to break. And eventually, to the mercy of God, He gave me a beautiful wife, which I thank Him for. But I now started changing my priorities. So I looked for a woman who is kingdom oriented.
Okay.
I said, if I want to marry a lady, I'll ask her.
Okay.
If I don't have anything, God can tell me empty every money you have today.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't need consultation. God can tell me leave Nigeria today, go to Zimbabwe. I will move. Go to Mozambique. I will move. Will the person be willing to let go of everything any day, anytime?
And then move along.
And move. And then number two, I said, God will have me raise people. I'll need a woman who has the largeness of heart and also the mental power to be able to raise a people who are refined, who fear God, and who can stand as nobles, as kings and princes to address a generation. So for me, intelligence and large-heartedness. So all of these values began to replace. And then I said my life will come with a lot of battles. That's the apostolic calling. I'll need a woman who has capacity to pray, because many times I won't be able to pray. So if you don't love prayer, if you don't love intercession, this thing might not work. So when I got into dating eventually, I had to test run all of these things. So all these calls, somebody happy birthday, this, sometimes I deliberately skipped it. Is it a big deal to you? If it's not a big deal,
so
I take something.
It's a big deal to them.
I had to check it. I'm telling you, my wife knows.
Even the ones that are just
most
relative.
of the things that people prioritize, I deliberately began to bring in kingdom. Sometimes we have to meet and I just call, oh sorry, something came up, I have to travel. You have the right to feel bad. You have the right to discuss, talk about it. But is this something that every time you will make reference to it? Is it more important than kingdom? I started checking those things because of the new value system God gave me. I started test running. And when I saw that to a large extent, some of these things align, and the ones that didn't align, there was a room for it to happen or for improvement. I now felt, okay, this is the direction to go.
I love that.
So you check with your value systems. So my value systems were wrong. It took a lot of time for God to begin to change them. When He gave me the new value systems, I had to make sure to a very large extent the person aligned. I know there are people who want to marry, they hear Martha, they hear Teresa, that's beautiful. I know the other people who want to marry, God shows them the vision of the person, that's beautiful. But It's not everybody that has the privilege of hearing that clearly.
Yes, sir.
But if you are a kingdom person, God will give you a value system. And when you find a woman, you have to check her along the lines of those value systems. If you see that a good number of them are met, and then you also see that even the ones not met, the person is teachable enough to learn them and adopt them, then I think it's a way.
But so when do you now take her out? There must be, there's time for retreat.
Yes.
And there's time for refreshment.
Of course, definitely. Of course. But I saying these things does not mean, in fact, when I started dating,
Yes, sir.
I discovered, I think somebody was living with me then. For 2 weeks, I spoke with her for more than 100 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I told myself, come on, what is happening with you? I will make a call and I'll be on the call for 4 hours. I call 8 o'clock, I talk to 12. I told myself, are you a Christian? What are you discussing? I will make a call, I'll be there for 6 hours. In the evening, I call again, I talk till 2 a.m. I have to hold myself and say, come on, wake up, what's going on here? So checking this value system does not mean, your humanity will not come up.
Yes, sir. True, sir.
I mean, you will be lying to yourself.
So in a year, is there a time where you take on a holiday?
Most definitely.
You have to block some of these invites.
I don't just take my wife out. See, I make her laugh. Sometimes she looks at me and say, "You are a politician." I'll come out of the car, open the door, and say, "The most pretty woman in the world." I just say all of these things. Sometimes I'm coming back home on her birthday, for example. I prepared the treat for her, gathered people somewhere, took her there, took her by surprise, and all of those things.
Nice.
Do these things deliberately because it's part of the feminine gender. And if you really love someone, you make up time.
True.
There are times where I take her out unawares. There are times where I buy just something special. I come and drop it somewhere. She sees it. I say, who brought all of those jokes and everything just to make her laugh?
I love
Sometimes
that.
I say some things. She says, you don't mean it. I know you are just saying. So I make her laugh. I play and do a lot of comedy. I'm a clown around my wife.
So that's the side that people don't see. I love that. I love.
Thank you for visiting Faith 2 Tech Media. Kindly subscribe and follow us to bless more lives.